UK ecosystems. River ecosystems in the UK. River ecosystems rely on water flow to aerate and bring in nutrients vital for plant growth. Plants keep a river oxidized, which provides food and oxygen to animals. The distribution of river ecosystems happens through rainfall, as most rivers are formed from mountain streams. River water evaporates and forms clouds, which release as rain, that eventually travels back into the rivers. Some plants rely on water to disperse seeds, and these aren't just water plants, as plants around water may also need to disperse them. The seeds of plants either drop to the ground or flow downstream and grow to provide oxygen necessary for water life. While water plants don't fully rely on animals, they still require them for balance in the ecosystem. For example, dragonfly nymphs feed on mosquito larvae, which eat microscopic algae in plants. Water plants provide a nest for insects to safely lay eggs. Humans have mainly impacts on water life, especially because it's so sensitive, especially amphibians such as frogs and toads, which have permeable skin that can absorb toxins as they use their skin to hydrate. Use of fertilizer by humans can affect rivers negatively and the life in them. When fertilizer spills into the river, high nutrients can cause an algal bloom, which, by blocking the sunlight and depleting oxygen level, will destroy the ecosystem and kill the water life. Abiotic factors that affect ecosystem distribution. Temperature is vital in ecosystems and in animals, as organisms have to maintain their body temperature or live in a habitat that does it for them. Acidity or pH can make the water harmful to immature fish and insects. The acidity affects the early stages of these animals by decreasing reproductive capacity and dissolving shells and skeletons. Carbonic acid can change the pH of fish's blood and lead to a condition known as acidosis. The balance of pH can also kill aquatic plants, not just animals. If the pH is too high or low, plants will die from lack of nutrients and other effects. Oxygen, one of the most important factors in every ecosystem. In river ecosystems, oxygen is produced by plants, and if those plants die or the oxygen is taken from them, ecosystems will die. Light levels are needed for plant growth, survival, and photosynthesis. Without plants, the river will die and bring all the creatures with them. Pollution is a danger to river ecosystems in more ways than one. One way is making the water too acidic, which will kill fish and plants. Another way is through eutrophication, which is when too many nutrients are released into a river, causing plants and algae to grow more. Eutrophication can lead to algal blooms, which absorbs most of the oxygen, blocks sunlight, killing plant life and animals. Algal bloom can also produce harmful toxins to fish and humans. Biotic factors that affect ecosystems. Competing for resources can lead to a decline in one or both species, which can lead to a decline in biodiversity. A decline in biodiversity lowers an amount of food and energy that's converted into biomass. Thankfully, this can be controlled by environmental disturbances. Competition can come in two ways. Competition within a species, intraspecific competition, or interspecific competition between individuals. Grazing. While this makes people think of a field or a forest, grazing does have an effect on river ecosystems too. Not enough grazing leads to dominant plants beating their competition, and too much grazing reduces biodiversity. Animals like freshwater shrimp are useful for controlling algae in rivers. Predation's effect on ecosystems can be both positive and negative. Balance is required in all ecosystems. To put it simply, you wouldn't want one creature growing too high in numbers, eat all the plants, so predation is necessary for controlling numbers. Too much predation would result in not enough biodiversity, which would result in less food for predators, and the stability of the ecosystem would decline. Food availability is important for biodiversity as it affects how many animals live in the ecosystem. In other words, more food means more animals, as food needs to be abundant to support large populations of animals. Symbiotic relationships in a river ecosystem. The only example I can think of is commensalism, when a dragonfly nymph uses plants to hunt. The dragonfly nymph gains a meal necessary for its survival, and the plant isn't harmed but doesn't receive any benefit. Parasitism is a relationship where one organism benefits at the expense of another. For example, lampreys latching onto fish and feeding on them. This harms the fish while benefiting the lamprey. Predator and prey. Predators are necessary for controlling prey's numbers, ensuring prey don't consume too much plants. However, if too many predators are present, they could reduce biodiversity and heavily damage the ecosystem. Abiotic factors that influence the distribution of ecosystems at a range of scales. Global. Energy flows through an ecosystem through the process of photosynthesis. Energy from the sun is trapped in chlorophyll and used to make sugar starch, which is eaten by primary consumers, which then go on to be eaten by secondary consumers all the way through to decomposers, which provide nutrients for plants. Climate affects ecosystems as certain temperatures affect growing conditions. Plants will need different temperatures as some plants are adapted to colder or hotter climates. Different climates determine what lives there, such as a humid subtropical climate have an abundance of plants and animals because more resources are available compared to a climate which is too hot, such as a desert, which requires more adaptation because of the extreme conditions. Regional. Areas with higher altitude are colder. Every 100 meters decreases the temperature by 1 degrees. Biomes are determined by altitude because this has an effect on temperature and precipitation. Local. Plants need different growing conditions. For example, plants that grow in water can't grow in drier conditions, as they have adapted to wetter conditions. Different soils can be prone to waterlogging, such as peaty soils, making it difficult for plants to grow. Soils can vary in acidity levels. If too acidic, can decrease certain nutrients, like phosphorus. In the right amount, acidic soils can provide good growing conditions for plants. Alkaline soils are bad for plants, as it prevents the roots from taking in nutrients. London is mostly clay soil. Clay soil holds more nutrients as it retains more water than other soils. How humans impact wildlife ecosystems. Humans positively impact wildlife through conservation, which can include tasks such as litter picking to planting forests. Conservation means to restore and protect nature. Humans in the field of conservation rewild and preserve ecosystems like in forests, where we coppice hazel trees and practice selective thinning. We increase light to the ground, providing vital habitats for butterflies and indicator species. In rivers, litter picking means that water sources for amphibians become less polluted. Other examples of protecting amphibians includes providing hides, such as pieces of scrap metal. Our recent awareness of the damage we cause to the environment means we can search for solutions and help each other protect wildlife. Unintentionally, we pollute in the environment. For example, fossil fuels are burnt to generate energy. However, this damages the environment through emitting carbon dioxide. These are known as greenhouse gases, which trap the heat in our atmospheres, causing global warming. A historical example is the Industrial Revolution. It's said to have produced 2.3 trillion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. A more modern example is the Deep Horizon, an oil drilling rig that exploded into the sea, killing marine life. And it was also the largest oil spill. However, the spill was not intended, but happened due to people wanting to buy and sell the oil. I can't think of many examples of intentional harm to the environment, but this is almost intentional, but more intended to harm a certain species. Humans have tried to fight infestations by bringing non-native predators like the cane toads in Australia, as they were brought to fight beetle infestation. The toads were supposed to protect sugarcane, however they exceeded this goal and became an invasive species. With help from their poisonous glands, they kept breeding and settled in Australia. We've talked about the past and somewhat present day, but what about future human impact? In future, due to emissions and other situations, the global temperature is set to rise by 3 degrees by 2100, bringing heat waves and over more extreme weather. Here is a trophic pyramid. This displays an organism's position in the food web and also shows us how energy is passed. Primary producers produce energy from the sun. These can be plants, algae, or bacteria. Primary consumers, herbivores that eat these plants. Secondary consumers, organisms that eat the primary consumers. And tertiary consumers consume the other organisms for energy. And then we have the apex predators. The sun provides the energy, and once the energy is passed from these animals and they die, decomposers break down decaying matter and give back recycled nutrients.